Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. In this video, we're going to talk about Cain. On this one document, there are two accounts of what is possibly Cain showing up. Yes, Cain from Genesis, who killed Abel, that Cain. And so we're going to go over those two accounts. And then I've been meaning to do this for a long time, but in David O. McKay's diaries, we have the account of him visiting Far West and explaining why Far West is so special. It's because it's the site where Cain killed Abel. So this is going to be an interesting one, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard these stories before, or at least one of them. Some people have tried to equate Cain with Bigfoot, which I'm not disputing necessarily. I don't know what to make of this really, but I've known for a while that I need to put it on my spreadsheet where I keep track of these visions and visitations. Up until this point, it's been visions and visitations of people from the other side of the veil, or people that are already resurrected, right? So this is kind of a different category, because if Cain is still alive, and I will say that's not strictly church doctrine. In fact, I can't find anywhere that would support that that's the doctrine of the church, that Cain is still alive. But if he is, then he's technically still in mortality. He's living in some kind of like, almost like translated, but like an evil translated state, to where he's still roaming the earth. So this is kind of like a third category from what I've been keeping track of, but I'm putting it on this spreadsheet. This is my spreadsheet called Quotes, Visions, and Visitations. You can access this anytime. The link for it is in the description box below. It's in the description box of each video. Okay, so I have two new accounts that I've added on here. So if we go to the bottom of the timeline, because I still haven't created a new spreadsheet for some of these, like this additional information from this spreadsheet. If we go to the bottom of the timeline, we have our first account from the 1910s. I'm keeping a tally by decade of how many different accounts that I have. So it's the first one for the 1910s. And then the other one comes from the 1830s, which brings that total to 23. And I have a total of 64 accounts through all decades. So I really think I'm going to get into the hundreds. I have no idea how far this is going to go, but it surprises me every single time that I add a new account on here. Okay, so for this, we're looking at the church history catalog. I don't know who wrote this. As you can see right here, it doesn't give an author. So let's take that into account. That's kind of odd, but anyway. Okay, so Cain. E. Wesley Smith, president of the Hawaiian Mission. Okay, so this is our first person. Elias Wesley Smith, the brother of Joseph Fielding Smith. And you can see here, he was the mission president of Hawaii back in 1919. Okay, so told me, and I don't know who me is, but told me the following experience on the 24th day of July, 1948, in the presence of my companions on the way down to Lahaina, of all places. Lahaina was a big story this time last year, actually, to attend the Pioneer Day celebration. President Smith, referring to E. Wesley Smith, said that he was quite discouraged regarding the work and progress of the mission a few months after his arrival, when he was first appointed mission president in what is correctly 1919, when he was still just a young man. As a result of feeling discouraged, he went to the Lord in earnest supplication to give him strength and wisdom and courage to continue on with his work. This was at a time just before the dedication of the Laie Temple. He said that shortly after his prayer, Sister Smith had retired, and he was sitting in their living room reading when he heard the front door bang open and looked up to see an unusually tall man come through the door. He was tall enough that he had to stoop to enter. His eyes were very protuberant and rather wild looking. His fingernails were thick and long. He presented a rather unkempt appearance and wore no clothing at all. He said not a word, but advanced toward President Smith with his hands outstretched, as though to clutch at him. President Smith said he was so frightened he couldn't speak, but that he quickly got to his feet and held his hands and arms up to protect himself from attack if possible. And that as he flung his arms up, there suddenly appeared in his right hand a light, which was the size and appearance of a dagger, and that a voice said to him, "This is your priesthood." He said this gave him courage, and that he commanded the person in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ to depart. He said that immediately when the light appeared, the person stopped, and on being commanded to leave, he backed out the door. A moment or two later, he went to the door to look out. No trace of anyone was to be seen. Okay, so that's a little bit scary. It's like a huge stranger just breaking and entering into your home one night after your wife's gone to bed and looking all crazy. Okay, on relating this experience to his brother, Elder Joseph Fielding Smith, a member of the Council of the 12, Elder Smith suggested to his brother, E. Wesley Smith, that it could have been Cain, Master Mahan, father of all sons of perdition, whose curse it is to roam the earth seeking whom he may destroy. He also said that for a period just prior to the dedication of every temple, there has been excessive strife and disquiet among the people, and that there is always unusual evidence of the spirit of the adversary working to cause dissension. Let's actually take a little tangent here. We're going to go to my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z under the topic Temples, Adversary. And this is a well-known thing, so I just want to read a couple things really quick. This is from Brigham Young in Journal of Discourses, Volume 8, pages 355 to 356. He says, "And one thing in particular let me say to you, in all your transactions in these public matters, do not do unless you want to. As we say to the saints, do not pay tithing unless you want to. Do not help to build this temple unless you want to. Do not put forth your hands to one day's work unless you want to. Do not put forth your hands to help build the 70s hall unless you want to. If you grudgingly put forth your means to help to gather the saints, it will be a curse to you. It will be mildew, and every effort you make will wither in your possession. If you do not wish to help, let it alone. But if you really want to help to gather the saints, turn out with your teams as you agree to. If you wish this temple built, go to work and do all you can this season. Some say, I do not like to do it, for we never began to build the temple without the bells of hell beginning to ring. I want to hear them ring again. All the tribes of hell will be on the move if we uncover the walls of this temple. But what do you think it will amount to? You have all the time seen what it has amounted to." And then he goes on. There's another one I want to read from, at the time, Elder George Q. Cannon of the Quorum of the 12, who later became a member of the First Presidency. This is in the Millennial Star, an article called The Logan Temple. This is 1877. "Every foundation stone that is laid for a temple, and every temple completed according to the order that the Lord has revealed for his holy priesthood, lessens the power of Satan on the earth and increases the power of God and godliness." And you can read more if you want, but that's the crux of the matter right there. Is it reduces his power whenever temples are built. And then let me just quickly remind you, it is true. It seems with a lot of temples, there's opposition. Recently, there's been the Lone Mountain, Nevada temple, which is in the Las Vegas area. There was a lot of opposition to that. It was making a lot of news. Thankfully, it looks like plans have been approved, and so the temple will be built. But it's happened many times. If you can remember of a particular temple experiencing opposition, put it in the comments below. Let's see how many we can think of that have experienced opposition. Happens a lot. Okay, so let's go back to this. Elder Joseph Fielding Smith sent his brother a little book written by Lycurgus A. Wilson of the life of David W. Patten, the first apostolic martyr of the latter days, from which the following excerpt is taken. So from this point, we are going to go ahead and go to that book, which has a little bit more complete of an account. So Elder David W. Patten, one of the first apostles in the restored church. We're going down to page 45. Okay, so this is where you find this account. And this is probably the more famous one that everybody knows. It was probably not long after his arrival in Tennessee in the spring of 1836. So that's the year that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated, by the way, that David had one of the most remarkable experiences of his life. He was making his home with Levi Taylor, the stepfather of Abraham O. Smoot, at the time, and had been to Paris, some 16 miles away, holding a meeting. Riding home in the evening, just where his road lay through a dense growth of brush, called in those parts a quote-unquote barren, he suddenly became aware that a person on foot by his side was keeping pace with the mule on which he rode. Okay, so before I continue, I've heard people say that this was like John Taylor or Wilford Woodruff or others, and I just want to remind you, no, it's Elder David W. Patten, and this is in Tennessee, because I think sometimes people get the location wrong. So David W. Patten in Tennessee, and this was the year that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated. Okay, continuing. But the subjoined letter dated at Provo, Utah, will explain the matter. President Joseph F. Smith, Salt Lake City. Okay, so I believe it seems clear here, but there's like a lot of like second, third hand stuff with this. So it seems this next part is by President Joseph F. Smith. Okay. Dear brother, in relation to the subject of the visit of Cain to brother David W. Patten in the state of Tennessee, about which you wrote to me, I will say that according to the best of my recollection, it was in the month of September 1835. So he's thinking, maybe it's not 1836, it's 1835. It was in the evening, just twilight, when Brother Patten rode up to my father's house, alighted from his mule, and came into the house. The family immediately observed that his countenance was quite changed. My mother, having first noticed his changed appearance, said, Brother Patten, are you sick? He replied that he was not, but had just met with a very remarkable personage who had represented himself as Cain, who murdered his brother Abel. Okay, so he walks in. The woman of the house, oh, are you sick? No, I just saw Cain, that's all. He went on to tell the circumstances as near as I can recall in the following language. As I was riding along the road on my mule, I suddenly noticed a very strange personage walking beside me. He walked along beside me for about 2 miles. That's a long ways. His head was about even with my shoulders as I sat on my saddle. He wore no clothing. So this is a similarity to what President Smith of the Hawaii Mission, what he experienced. So maybe that's why Joseph Fielding Smith was like, oh, that sounds like what David W. Patten experienced. He wore no clothing, but was covered with hair. His skin was very dark. I asked him whence he dealt, and he replied that he had no home, that he was a wanderer in the earth, and traveled to and fro. He said he was a very miserable creature, that he had earnestly sought death during his sojourn upon the earth, but that he could not die, and his mission was to destroy the souls of men. About the time he expressed himself thus, I rebuked him. So he like David W. Patten was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I'll allow it. But then as soon as he says that, he's like, okay, I'm rebuking you now. I rebuked him in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by virtue of the holy priesthood, and commanded him to go hence, and he immediately departed out of my sight. When he left me, I found myself near your house. There was much conversation about the circumstances between Brother Patten and my family, which I don't recall, but the above is the substance, is in substance his statement to us at the time. The date is, to the best of my recollection, and I think it is correct, but it may be possible have been in the spring of 1836. But I feel quite positive that the former date is right. Hoping the above will be satisfactory to you and answer your purpose. I am with kindest regards as ever, your friend and brother, A.O. Smoot. So you see, there's a lot of people, like, it seems like this is passing through different people's hands, and then it gets into this book. Does it mean that it's not true? No, it doesn't. But I think that we have to take it with a grain of salt. I think some of this idea may come from here. So when you go to Genesis 4, verses 11 and 12, talking about Cain, it says, this is the Lord's curse on Cain for having killed Abel. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. So it doesn't say that he's going to live until the end of the earth or live until the second coming. I think some people maybe take it to mean that. I'm not sure. I don't really know. Now, if you go to this website, this is Fair LDS, or sorry, fairlatterdaysaints.org. This is I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's an apologetics website, and they have a lot of good information, and I like the work that they do. They do cast some doubt about this. I'm not sure if I 100% agree. I just, with this story, with both of them, I'm a little bit more just like on the neutral side. Let me just share some of what they say, though. A story is sometimes circulated that Cain, son of Adam and Eve and first murderer, still walks the earth today. The notion that Cain somehow lived on, survived the flood, and roams the earth today is familiar to modern members, mostly based on a single claim of David W. Patten, supposedly meeting an unusual person assumed to be Cain. And then it gives the account. They point out that there is a scripture that alludes to Cain actually having died. This is in the Pearl of Great Price, Moses 5:51. And it says, from or since the days of Cain, so, which seems to indicate that Cain was dead by this time. Which, yeah, you could say that. It's like, oh yeah, back in the days of Cain when he was alive. So yeah, that would seem to be an indication. And then they cite a apocryphal source, the book of Jasher. There's a part of it that says, and the arrows entered Cain's body, although he was distant from them, and he fell to the ground and died. So that could be. Joseph Smith said that the Apocrypha was mostly right. It's not canon, though, so we have to take that into account. And then they talk about the fact that Spencer W. Kimball had included this in the miracle of forgiveness. So, as always, the approach that I take, and I think everyone should take, is it's good for us to read the scriptures and think about it and, draw conclusions or, form a picture in our head. But it's much more valuable after doing that to actually listen to the modern day prophets and apostles. So if at the time Elder Spencer W. Kimball believed that it was a true account, I'm going to go with him. It's not like this is been commented on very much by a lot of different general authorities. So I don't know, maybe it was just his opinion, but When I look at the prophet and the apostles, I think that their opinions are good opinions. Not that they're infallible, but I think that a lot of things, like when they say things, they have it on good authority. I'm keeping track of all these different visions and visitations. We know that these happen, and there's a lot of times in General Conference or other places they talk about the fact that they've seen Christ, that they've interacted with him, and they allude to many special spiritual experiences that they don't share. So I defer to them, you know. But that's why, this isn't important enough to me to like definitively say, oh, this really was a true story. It was Cain or it wasn't. I would probably side with, President Spencer W. Kimball. And then if everything is being remembered correctly, and this is all written down accurately, then yeah, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with one of the first apostles of the church, and I'm going to go with Elder Smith or both President Smiths. So I don't know. There is also the possibility that rather than being Cain, maybe it was just an evil spirit, or there was something else going on. Maybe there was somebody that was like possessed with an evil spirit or something. Who knows? There's different possibilities. Okay, so from here, but I am going to keep these accounts on here, but let's just remember to take them a little bit with a grain of salt, probably. Okay, and from here, let's talk about Cain murdering Abel at Far West. So we're back here at the University of Virginia's Mormon Studies website, the David O. McKay diary excerpts. And if you come down here, it has all these different excerpts categorized by these different topics. So the one that we're looking at is Missouri. Okay. And here it is. The date was June 7th, 1966. Let's see. Supplement to the journal record of the visit of President David O. McKay to Adam-ondi-Ahman. Let's look at the map really quick just to orient ourselves in case there's new subscribers or people that are not familiar with the geography of this area. Okay, so we know that down here in the future site of the New Jerusalem, Jackson County, Independence, Missouri, you have, it's been revealed by Joseph Smith that this was where the Garden of Eden was. Once Adam and Eve were cast out, they made their way to Adam-ondi-Ahman and made their residence there. And this is where Adam had his two altars, one for sacrifice, one for prayer, right? And Far West is in between the two. It's closer to Adam-ondi-Ahman, but Far West is over here. It was church headquarters for a while. And there were cornerstones laid for a temple at Far West. And it seems to me that at some point in the future, there probably will be a temple built here at Far West. And I'm looking forward to that day. We are like right now we live in Kansas. We're looking to move to Missouri. It's probably not going to happen too soon. At first I thought it was, but it may not be until like next year, possibly later. I guess we'll see how things go. But I'd like to live in this area. I would like to live near Far West, frankly. I really like the feeling there when I went there. It does feel like a very holy place. Okay, so Far West. In connection with President McKay's visit at Far West on the date given, it is to be noted that while there, the president appeared somewhat overwhelmed. The place made a deep impression upon him, so much so that he referred to Far West a number of times in the ensuing days as a place of deep impression. The feeling that President McKay had at Far West registered upon me once again, but now with greater impact. The events that transpired there are significant. The Lord proclaimed Far West the Lord proclaimed Far West a holy and consecrated land unto him, declaring to Joseph Smith that the very ground he stood on there was holy. B, the prophet Joseph Smith contended with the devil face to face for some time upon the occasion of the power of evil menacing one of his children in the prophet's home just west of the temple site. Lucifer declared that Joseph had no right to be there, that this was his place. Whereupon the prophet rebuked Satan in the name of the Lord, and he departed and did not touch the child again. Now, I'm going to have to go and find that account. I'm sure it's written somewhere. If any of you know where I can find that, please send it to me, because I'll be doing a video about that once I get my hands on it. Okay, so that was A, B, and now C. The overwhelming feeling that President McKay had when he visited this sacred place. The answer: I have often pondered the holy significance of Far West, and even more so since President McKay's visit. The sacredness of Far West Missouri is no doubt due to the understanding that the prophet Joseph Smith conveyed to the brethren at these early times, that Adam-ondi-Ahman was the place to which Adam and Eve fled when cast out of the Garden of Eden, is where Adam erected an altar unto God and offered sacrifices, and that Far West was the spot where Cain killed Abel. This information tends to explain why the Lord declared Far West to be a holy, consecrated place, and no doubt explains why Satan claimed that place as his own, as it was here that he entered into a covenant with Cain, resulting in the death of Abel, the first of mortal existence upon this earth. It would appear that President McKay, while there, felt the spirit and significance of this holy place. So let's go back here. So it's a very special place, and it is fitting that at some point there will be a temple there, right? It's almost as though to like reverse the evil that occurred there, and to commemorate Abel, you know. And it would be fitting, you know, not that Cain was translated the same way that righteous people are translated, but if it is true that he was destined to live, you know, until the second coming or something like that, maybe it was fitting, since he was the first one to take life, that he would be forced to live for all these many years and not be able to die. That it'd be a form of punishment for him, never being able to settle down in an area, not being able to live a regular life, and just being miserable, right? Maybe it is fitting that him killing Abel, being the first one to kill, he would have to suffer life until presumably the millennium. Here's Far West. I know many of you have been there. I was there just several months ago. Well, more than several months ago. But you have the cornerstones that are still there that were laid. And I'm sure someday, hopefully soon, hopefully there will be a temple built there. I think at least by the millennium, it'll be built. Okay. Well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.